Welcome to the LC500 Convertible. This is a product that Lexus has designed to cater to a very specific group of people. They don't plan on selling more than 200 or 300 of these a year, which means you're going to be in an exclusive club of ballers like me who want to burn their bald spot in Florida or California. This is a vehicle for someone that wants to be utterly connected to their environment and to a naturally aspirated V8 and one of the louder exhausts you can possibly find in the industry. But in terms of the LC500 Convertible, there are some changes here, and a lot of it has to do with usability. The door panels, for example, are much different than what you find in the coupe. They've gotten rid of all the fancy pants fabrics here, and they've added what feels like a soft touch plastic along the door for durability. Obviously, if you're getting moist or getting the interior damp from rain or whatever else you're spraying on it, it's not going to turn into a mess. And the marketing department in Lexus decided they were going to add a special feature called the heat scarf, which is right behind your seat, which is a ventilated area that you can control in the infotainment. It turns a little bit of heat up here and blows on your neck, and it tickles my back hair the way that I like. Take a look at this. When you fold up this hidden flap, which doesn't really have enough area, if I had my fingernails done, I might chip one. So if you're a lady, you might, or a man, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend, you might chip a nail. But once you fold this up and you have to listen to this incessant beeping, like all Lexuses do, and now it's going to tell me the window's open. It's still going to tell me the window's open, which I know, clearly, it's a convertible. Now it's going to beep again because I turned it on. Now let me close the door again and open it. There we go. Finally, the beeping stopped. Now I can put the top down. What else is there to talk about? Well, for one, there's no wind buffeting in here. Doesn't matter where the windows are at. It's always a very serene environment. The back seats are absolutely and incredibly worthless. I don't know who's going to sit back there, and I don't know why you would. It is a medieval torture device. There's no room for your legs. In fact, you probably would want to cut them off if you're going to sit back there in any great length. So definitely try those out if you want a good laugh. But other than that, let's get into the technical information about the changes underneath. We are back under yet another LC500 after our compilation video celebrating the V8 products.
You're a happy boy.
I am a happy boy. I really appreciate this car, to put it nicely. Now, there are some changes to make a convertible. When you take a can opener to the roof, you take away tons of structural rigidity, and you have to add weight because of the mechanism.
Yeah, the convertible mechanism. So what you've basically done here is because they've removed the roof, they've added between like 150 and 200 pounds of this car, depending on your trim level and what options you have. And because there's no hybrid option anymore, the convertible top goes where the hybrid battery pack used to be. So you have the hybrid trunk, which means you have a compromised area in that department. And then they've had to add a ton of structural rigidity braces. And what they've done is they've added 80 to 75% of the rigidity back that they lost when they cut off the roof. And that's the way Toyota's described it.
Okay. So the machine material off the wheels, okay, to save weight. And the big changes in the front suspension are this lower control arm used to be steel. It's steel on all the LC500s. And this massive piece has to get trickled down into the other LC500s. Maybe not this year, but to develop this. Again, this is about weight. And the second thing they've done over here, at least in this area, is they've added cross members, which are steel. They connect to the floor pan in the back. And then you have a cross member that ties together the center or the middle part of the car. So this is how they're adding rigidity back in this car. Yep. Control arm, skid plate, cross members, and cross bracing. But let's get to the back and talk about that.
All right.
In the rear of the LC500 Convertible, there are a few tweaks.
And they're all structural, Mark. In fact, because of their structural changes, they've lost the ability to add rear steer.
So that eliminates the potential of having a performance pack convertible, because you can't have a carbon roof, you can't have the rear steering module. I guess you could technically add the variable gear ratio steering and the torsion. But you can see the reason you can't do rear steering is the aluminum brace that connects to the floor pan here in the rear, which the subframe is mounted right in front of it. You cannot fit that module in here, so forget it. but these cross members run to the sides towards the middle part of the car. So they are long braces. And again, this is how they're adding back some rigidity they lost with the top.
This is the compromise they have to make, unfortunately. But, I mean, basically, as we talked about earlier, the LC500 Convertible is purely a GT car. All the sporting pretensions, other than the amazing exhaust, are gone.
Yep. So let's get this out on the road and see how it drives.
All right.
Setting off in the 2021 LC Convertible, Jack.
That's proper, Mark.
That is everything you need to know about the LC Convertible. Now, this is not a complete review. This is the launch video. So we're in a pre-production prototype of the 2021 model.
And we have it for a very limited amount of time.
Yes, but limited enough to tell you that we know probably more about the LC than most people do. So we can talk to some of the serious changes that have been made to this car. Now, we've excluded some conversation from the shop about suspension. In 2018, when I first got behind the wheel of this car, my major complaint, and really one of the few complaints I had, was it rode like crap. It was very, very firm, unconscionably firm for a car like this. Now they've gone to the other extreme.
When you put this into comfort mode, it is one step away from Lincoln Town Cars soft. I'm not going to say it's floaty or ponderous, but it's getting there.
It's one of the softest cars you're going to get into in the modern age, besides like an S-Class, like the big long wheelbase Audis, or a car with air ride, and this does not have air ride. And one of the ways they've accomplished this is changing the shock absorbers to have longer stroke, which it desperately needed.
But when you put it into Sport Plus, the stiffest of modes in the LC500, it is still very soft, but it's not floaty anymore. It controls its body motions very well, and it's about as good as you could get a suspension for a street car.
Correct. And I'm going to flip this over to comfort now since we're talking about it. Oh, yeah. If you have a severe case of hemorrhoids, this is going to be your dream car. Now, for the convertible, personally, the demographic that's going to drive this is how you would want this car. You still have the noise, you still have the amazing engine sound, but now you're going to take this anywhere and never have any fatigue.
Personally, I think the convertible loses some of the cool factor of the coupe. I think it has this waft of Floridian about it, where it's a bit more retiree. But you're right. For the kind of person who's buying a luxury convertible or a luxury two-door car that is all about theater, this is really a Japanese F-Type, right? It's given up some of its dynamic capability compared to the German counterparts for noise, which is what you want in a car like this.
Right.
It makes a whole lot of sense.
It does make a ton of sense. Now, compared to the coupe with the performance package that we just got out of, with rear wheel steering, the variable gear ratio steering, this has none of that. And I feel like this is a vastly more neutered experience. It's softer on every single edge. It understeers way more. It doesn't get out of control. You can't lose the back end as much. So this is the more refined LC500. And some of these, well, most of the suspension changes that were made for this car are going to carry into the 2021 model year, including the suspension revisions in the lower control arms, the dampers, and the springs. Now, I'm not sure if the spring rates are going to stay the same as soft as this for the coupe cars, but I don't know. I think this is a step in the right direction for the people that are buying this.
It makes total sense. Sadly, though, because of the lack of rear steer, this feels far more ponderous than the last LC we drove. This is the same spec of car, essentially, as the first LC I ever drove. And I'm going to be honest, all the reasons I didn't like that car carry over to this one.
It zaps a lot of the fun out of the LC coupe that we just drove with all the performance package stuff. This is in a different category, you know.
That's why you buy this car.
Absolutely. Final thoughts on the LC convertible. And I've been lucky enough to spend plenty of time in the coupe, and I followed its evolution even prior to its production all the way till now. We just did a video on the V8 Lexuses, and one of the big things we talked about was these are not spec sheet cars. They're not designed for somebody that needs to see the most horsepower, the best 0 to 60, the best quarter mile time, that's lateral G-force and all the technical stuff. That's not what it's about. And some may see that as an excuse, but you really have to get in and out of a bunch of cars, modern vehicles, to appreciate what the LC is trying to do. It's that connection to the machine in large part through sound. And when you drop the top of the LC and you hear the exhaust, which is insanely loud, it's like the old F-Type, maybe not to that extreme, and a naturally aspirated V8, which is dying. When you hear that, when you really wind that out, and you kind of heard it in this video a bit, it's intoxicating. It's one of the best parts, and if you're even remotely interested in the styling and you want that Japanese interior design, you are absolutely gonna love this, and you're gonna make no excuse for spending $101,000. That's the base price. Now you could add a few options, and these are the two that I'd add a la carte, is the Levinson audio, which is somewhere around like 1,500 bucks. It tests great. We tested it in the last LC video. And also the Torsen limited slip differential with the Yamaha Performance lateral damper, which you see in their F Sport products. That's only 500 bucks. Then you go crazy from there. You have the touring package, which is like $5,000. It includes a bunch of stuff. And then you have the Inspiration series, which is really limited production. You get the special structural blue with the white leather interior and a whole bunch of other stuff, and that's $18,000. So you really got to love this car to spend that kind of money. But overall, this is a luxury cocoon. It's gone from kind of a really harsh riding car in 2018, and now for 2021 plus with all the suspension changes, it is just buttery, buttery smooth. So if you're somebody like me who wants a little bit more edge, I'd just buy like a 2020 or 2019 with the performance pack and the coupe, because you get the rear wheel steering, which you can't get on the convertible. I mean, there's a little bit here for everybody, but I'm not gonna lie. If you want performance, you just go buy a BMW. You know, if that's what you care about is outright horsepower and going fast in a straight line. If you want the driving experience in terms of sound and feel, the LC is definitely one of the coolest cars out there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.